Clerk of court, or former clerk of court, Becky Hill, was accused back in September of 2023 of tampering with the Murdaugh jury. The court, when this finally came to hearing, essentially ruled that yes, Courthouse Becky had had ill-advised, fleeting, and frivolous conversations with jurors. Justice Toll made it very clear that she believed that Courthouse Becky was not doing this necessarily for fame or maybe because of the siren call of fame, but in a I want to be popular type of a way. I don't think she was doing it for money. The defense kept trying to make this narrative happen. They were trying to make fetch happen. Like, she's trying to sell her book and she's trying to make money. I think she wanted to be the center of attention. I was on the Murdaugh clerk of court. The child of the century. I don't know if they had bad blood. She and Murdaugh went to high school together. She went to high school with family members. Their family members used to moonshine together. Yes, that's in her book, like generations back. I think she very much wanted to be at the center of all of this. I am informing that opinion based on going through the massive dump of her emails wherein she was kissing ass to Nancy Grace and signing, like, emails to Nancy Grace were signed XOXO Becky Boo, and emails to other journalists were like, I'll get to you when I can. So she very much was also playing favorites in who was allowed into the courthouse, when they got into the courthouse to watch Murdaugh. So she was wielding and brokering in her own little world of power during that trial, who she was letting in the side door that didn't have to wait in line to get into trial, things like that. And the media, I don't give any shade to the media for playing into it, because if the media is like, oh, if we just flatter her a lot, we're going to get reserved seats and not wait in line. Yeah, no shade to that at all. But she was definitely playing favorites with the Murdaugh trial. And I think it was very much attention behavior and wanting to be in the middle of it. Most clerk of courts are like, don't talk to me unless you need a Kleenex or a Band-Aid, and be here on time. I'm going to make sure you're here on time. If you get in a car accident, call me. And that's about it. She wanted to be everybody's friend. And she talked about this in the emails leading up to the trial about how she wanted to roll out the red carpet for the world to see Walter Burrow, and how she was inserting herself into tasks that necessarily weren't hers and was getting some pushback internally from it. But then her son got arrested and charged with wiretapping, and the wiretapping seems to stem out of all of Becky wanting to be in the know about the investigation that was ongoing into the jury tampering that she was accused of. Her son was the head of IT for the same county where she was the clerk of court. She is also being investigated. The co-author of her book sat down and spoke with law enforcement on Friday. This press conference came on a Monday. Do I think the timing of that is coincidental? No, I don't think anything's coincidental. Do I think that we could see charges for Becky Hill? Yeah, I think she might absolutely be involved in this wire tapping. And if you go back to the episode where I cover some of the emails, she's talking in the emails about how she can't wait to be vindicated, and how this is all essentially a witch hunt by Murdaugh's lawyers, Dick and Jim, and how this is all just a big mistake. Well, ma'am, your son was wiretapping other people that worked at the county. It seems like that was involved to listen in on what you were doing. Clerk of court Becky Hill could have sent an email, didn't want to send an email, was just grinning ear to ear that she is resigning from the position of clerk of court on Monday, effective immediately. Yes, she could have just sent an email. Yes, she could have just done a press release. Yes, she could have just announced that she was not seeking re-election to pave the way for other candidates to throw their hat in the ring. But with Becky Hill being under investigation and having also been determined to have spoken to jurors during a high-profile trial, I'm sure people were already fairly comfortable throwing their hat in the ring to run against her. I don't think that was something that wasn't happening already, and there were options for her. They said that they didn't want, and they being Becky Hill and her attorney Justin Bamberg, they didn't want this election when clerk of courts were questioned at public forums. I have never seen an election where the clerk of court is at a public like Q&A forum, but I digress. Didn't want it to be a cloud over the proceedings now where other clerk of courts have to address it. I think if that were the case, they could have said she's not seeking reelection and I'm not going to comment on it. It is what it is. So, yeah, it could have been a press release, but Becky, I think, very much wanted to have a press conference. And I think her lawyer, look, when you see zealous advocacy in action, sometimes you don't agree. But I think Justin Bamberg did a very good job of saying, she didn't want to hide behind a computer. She wanted to look y'all in the face and tell you why she was resigning from office. Becky, everybody would have read a press release and gone, okay. People are talking about it more because you had a press conference, because most of the conversation is, why the do you think you needed a press conference for that? But again, I think that Becky's impression of the attention, warranted or otherwise directed at her, is different than maybe the reality of the situation. I'm very, very curious as to how this wiretapping investigation is going to go. Like, that's all I want to know about. Like, is Becky going to be arrested? Is Becky involved in the wiretapping? What else are they investigating Becky for? The ethics complaints that I went over in other coverage indicate that people believe, these are allegations in her ethics complaints, that she was taking money to give tours of the courthouse. So, let's see what happens, shall we? For deep dives into the stories that I covered here, you can find them on my YouTube channel at The Emily D. Baker and The Emily Show podcast. I stream every Tuesday and Thursday. The podcast goes live on Wednesdays. And if you want to stay in the loop with everything I'm doing, receive the fastest notifications out there, and get more Law Nerd community, join me at lawnerdapp.com, our free app for iOS and Android.